Welcome to the Plant Trainers Podcast, where we're helping people improve their quality of life through nutrition and fitness. And now, your hosts, nutrition and wellness coaches, international speakers, Adam and Shoshana Chaim.
Hey, I'm Adam Chaim.
And I'm Shoshana Chaim, and we are
Propelled by Plants. Today we bring to you episode 452, Creating Healthy Schools with Us.
In this episode of the Plant Trainers Podcast, we talk about ways to create healthier, more sustainable schools and give great tips on making school lunches as well. One thing that we've noticed over the years is that the cycle or season of lunches and what lunches look like really changed. This is a repeat episode from a couple of years ago that we thought had maybe gotten lost or some new people hadn't heard yet. So we thought that we'd bring it back up now. We're going into October and everybody's kind of in the swing of things. Don't get stuck in just giving your kids money for lunch. Think about the kinds of things that you're putting in their lunchbox and the way the school is behaving and if that's a sustainable way, and take action and do something.
Yeah, the timing made sense. There were a lot of questions we were getting about schools and about food for kids at school, so we figured we'd replay the episode. Hope you enjoy it. Lots of great tips in it. Enjoy the show.
All the people on Facebook and Instagram who are always asking me about how to make healthy lunches for your kids. The best way for me to do that is not to tell you, but it's to teach you in our school lunch guide a way to making it easy and healthy. It's also about helping parents and their children to come together and decide on healthy lunch items that kids agree to eat, and creating a structure around the lunch making to keep the guesswork out of it, to keep early morning frustrations away, and really to avoid that after-school wasted slop from being a daily ritual. It really doesn't take more than 20 minutes to do together, and it will save you hours later on. I thought of you because I know that you're trying to create easy and healthy lunches your child will actually eat, so you can feel like a rock star parent and your child can actually get the nutrients they need to grow and learn. Would you like to see it? Check it out at planttrainers.com/shop or click the school lunches link in the show notes.
And now for a moment of gratitude.
I have been using a new food supplement for energy with a lot of my clients, and the results that they're getting are absolutely amazing. So I'm just so grateful to be able to help these people get through the day and get their job done and have enough energy for their family. It's wonderful to watch.
Had a big school camping trip, and a lot of the organization and prep had to do alone, but I had your help. So wanted to thank you, and I'm grateful for all the help that you've given to us.
Happy to help. Anything in my teeth? Just kidding.
Hopefully.
Okay, everybody. How are you doing today? It is Adam and I.
Just us.
Just us. No guests today. And we are going to be talking about how to make your children's school a little bit more plant-based, a little bit more sustainable, a little bit more ethical.
A little bit healthier.
Yeah, and a little bit more in line with probably a lot of the values that you have and definitely the values that we have.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right. So the reason why this came up is because I am a school council member. I get to vote. So every month, a few teachers and the principal and some parents come together and we talk about what's going on in the school, what kind of initiatives we're going to do, what kind of fundraising we're going to do, what are some of the initiatives that the school's doing and how can the parents help. So we help with school lunches and, providing that. And I know that it will work differently depending on where you live in the world, but where we live, the school orders lunches through a company. The parents decide if they want to buy them or not. They pay for it online. It comes. We have school events like carnivals and Halloween dances, all of these different things. So essentially, the parents and the school together make these decisions on what's going to happen. So
why? Wait a second. Why are you on this council? What's the benefit to having you on there when it takes you out of the house and away from the family sometimes?
A question that you ask me
All
every
the time.
third Wednesday night of every school month.
Because I'm not sold on it because I don't know and see the changes that are necessarily happening. So what's the benefit to having a parent be on their school council?
Okay, so number one, if you have a child that doesn't come home and tell you absolutely everything,
which is most,
or anything, it really does help you. You get a principal's report, so you find out, things that are going on. You're the first to know when, parent-teacher interviews are, or, you know things in advance. It helps you get to know the other parents in the community. which can be really great in terms of if you hear of somebody who's, a kid who's allergic to milk and all of a sudden the parents don't know what to do. And you might not be a nutritionist, you might not be a coach or anything like we are, but you still have something that you can offer them. So you're building community, you're finding out what's going on in the school, and you really do to some extent have a hand in decisions that are made.
So you could give out suggestions and they're going to listen to you?
You're going to give out suggestions. Whether they listen to you or not is a whole other thing. So, for example, I think that this was only my second year sitting on the council, and I get a vote. You don't have to vote to go to these things, but a lot of us who show up every single month, we want to have a say. And the reason why I like to have a say is because nobody else is rooting for nutrition. Nobody else is rooting for elimination of waste, and I really want my voice to help the school there. So, for example, there was Carnaval. So they have this carnival, this winter carnival event that's a lot like the carnival. It's a takeoff on what happens in Quebec City. You could look that up. And they have this big bonhomme, this big snowman, and they have all kinds of winter games. And they wanted to provide hot chocolate for the children, so that if it was very cold, the children would be able to go inside or go to the hot chocolate station, warm up with some hot chocolate, and then go back to their groups.
Makes
and
sense.
Everybody was like, wow, that's so exciting. Let's give them hot chocolate. Because, if you think about it from a non-health point of view, it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
It's something different. It's not something that happens. But then Shoshana raises her hand and says, that's really great. But how many children do you think are not really going to need to warm up, but know that there's hot chocolate? They're going to leave the activity, the physical activity. The whole reason of doing this is to give them outdoor physical activity. They're going to leave their outdoor physical activity to go have a rest at the hot chocolate station. Who's going to monitor how many times they go? And what about the kids who are lactose intolerant? What about the kids who are kosher and don't know what's in it? Or what about kids who might be fasting, right?
What about giving them sugar that they don't need on a regular day?
Right. So I left that part out at the beginning. I was just kind of saying, okay, here's the bigger situation without knowing that it's always coming back to health for me. What other negative parts can I find about it? And kind of highlight and say, well, what do you guys think about that? And then the principal's like, oh, but it's so much fun. And I'm like, it is, but then they're not going to have fun in the activities that they'll never have another chance to experience. And then I throw in, and if I have to vote, I'm going to vote against it. And we don't really have people vote against things very often. And then there was kind of like a silence.
Does it have to be a unanimous vote for things to be passed?
It doesn't. It has to be a majority, but it really got people thinking like, oh my God, she's right. And then I'm like, and what are you going to do? You're going to hype them up on sugar, and they're not going to burn it off because they're going to spend the whole time there, and then they're going to go back to the classroom. I'm like, in theory, it's a nice idea, but...
And so what happened with that vote in the end? Did they have the hot chocolate?
They didn't have the hot chocolate. So when you have values that you want to instill or have influence on the school that your children are going to, it's important to put this kind of council, if it exists at your school, or build it or find out about it, or what else can you do. It's important to be out of the house for me every third Wednesday night because...
to provide a voice.
To provide a voice, exactly. So I have made some segue in doing this, for sure.
So can I ask you a question? Because our school, their school, is sanctioned as a healthy school, right? Like they have the certification saying that they're considered to be a healthy school in Ontario. I don't really understand how a healthy school is able to provide such garbage food for their students. They offer pizza lunches and hot dogs and chips and soda and all this nonsense that really does not promote health in our kids. And I don't see them educating our students or our kids to be healthier through the food that they're doing. I understand there's other aspects of a healthy school, whether it's recycling or reusing or using green bins and blue bins and stuff like that.
Okay, so there's a lot of different things that you just spoke about. And depending, again, where your school's located, district, private, public, what have you, it's going to look a little bit different. So you said a couple of things in there that are absolutely true. You said a couple of things in there that aren't. And that's fine. And the point I could make from that is because our kids don't talk about everything and because you don't come to those meetings, there's so much that you don't know. So that kind of he's making a face.
Teach me.
So that kind of proves a point that if you're not involved, you often don't know. There's definitely no soda involved.
Right.
So there's no soda at the school. We're like a third level eco school, which means that they don't provide textbooks anymore. They provide everything online. So there's a whole bunch of different things that go in terms of the ecosystem, or, you know, keeping the world cleaner. In terms of being, you know, healthy, there's a healthy school committee too. So if you
Are you on that too?
I'm on that too. I am the one of two and a half parents that are on that committee. So, you know, and you don't have to be on every committee, but find out, is there a healthy schools committee? Can you make a subcommittee of the parents committee or home and school committee? What is it? So in terms of the food, let's go back to the lunch. I definitely don't agree with the types of lunches that are being served. Now, some schools have cafeterias and they can maybe, and I don't know if kids pay for it, if it's subsidized. So changes could be made in that way there's lots of programs out there. There's lots of influence that you can make. It usually comes down to the dollar.
Yep.
And when you have meat and dairy industries that, especially in the States, that are subsidized, here in Canada too, makes it that much cheaper. So it's going to be really hard to, you know, serve beans that are 10 cents more a pound than cheese, right? At our school, what happens is we hire an outside company and we say, here are the options for lunches that you could order on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for the whole month or a couple of months. People order it online. Everybody knows in advance what their kids are getting. The school knows in advance how much they need to order. They order it, and we make money on top of that.
I get it. That's all great.
Right, but let everybody else get it. So that money goes to buy computers or repaint the entrance. Like, it helps to make the school a better learning place.
Right.
Now, there are guidelines that our particular school covers, and I'm not sure what they are 100%, but they have to do around fat and fiber and sodium. So while a lot of the options that we're not providing are good, I can definitely say that they are better than some other options. I don't think it's awful. Like, our kids get pizza once a week, but they're getting pizza that I make at home,
which is very different.
And that I send, right? It is very different. But for parents see it as a way to, you know, in their busy lifestyles, not make food for their kids and be able to buy it and put it forward. So there's a lot going on there. I really do think that if you can be part of this committee or have some kind of influence to say, okay, are we going to offer a vegan option once a week? Or, you know, or if there's many options, can you have a vegan or vegetarian option every day? Those are the types of small steps that you're going to take. It's really important that when you go out into these meetings, that you don't go full force, that you don't look like a bully, because you don't want the pushback before you even try to push, right?
So I understand all that, and I really applaud Canada for making changes in the food guide and being a leader in that area. But at the same time, I applaud people like Dr. Neil Barnard and PCRM, who in the States are making headway with school lunches and providing better options and more plant-based options in a lot of schools. And they're becoming a leader in that aspect, where we're ahead of them in the food guide. We should be ahead of them with the food as well. So we need to bring some of that over to us while they need to bring some of us over to them. And what I'm concerned about is that the schools are providing foods that just make kids happy, so that the teachers and the staff and the admin don't have to deal and manage with disciplining kids and dealing with behavior when they don't realize that the food that they're giving these kids are causing a lot of that behavior in the first place.
Oh, absolutely. And I've seen it over the years. You know, they'll order chili thinking that chili is a better option. Let's pretend it's vegan chili for now, right? So chili is a better option than a cheeseburger, right? Let's call it that. But then the chili comes and it's kind of leaked out of the container a little bit, and it grosses the kids out when they see it, and then they don't eat it. So if they're gonna, you know, or they've tried to do healthier type options and people don't order it. So when people aren't voting with their money, it's very hard to create change too. So we've really got to find good options and make either radical change or slow change depending on who and what you have behind you.
So it seems like we got into school food and lunches. So what can people that are listening do to help with their specifically school lunches and making them healthier or providing healthier options for their school or their kids?
I think that you should be sending your own or voting with your dollar only when it's up to your standards. And saying, okay, it's easier for me to send my kid with $3 to buy their lunch, even though I really don't like what they're being offered. You're voting with your dollar for it. If you want to vote with your dollar against it, you've got to provide your own lunch, or you've got to go in there every day or get petitions signed and get some kind of change. The way that I like to approach it, whether it's school lunches, whether it's events where we're having food, what have you, is I like to bring up, I never like to use, I often don't use the word healthy, and I really don't use the word vegan, and I very rarely use the word plant-based. I don't make it about my kids. Right. I don't make it about my values. I make it about the community and inclusiveness. So you have kids with egg allergies. You have kids with dairy allergies. You have kids who are affected by food dyes, who are affected by colors. You have kids who are overweight, who have religious beliefs, who are gluten-free. You have kids who can't afford, and the school's constantly asking for money, and these, selling bags of chips or selling cookies. And what about the waste? What about the waste that comes from it? Those are the kinds of things that I like to concentrate on. I don't like to say in my family, we don't do this, so nobody else should. I like to try to make it as inclusive as possible. And, come back to those religious beliefs, come back to those allergies.
My concern is the lack of awareness surrounding the food and the impact it's making on the students. You're asking them to eat this food because that's what you're providing for them. And then you're having them sit in a desk and expect them to sit there disciplined and listen to the teacher teach, when those foods that are so high in sugar or foods that don't have good nutrients and nutrition value, the kids are off the wall, and then the teacher can't handle it, and then the class gets out of control, and then one thing leads to a next.
So I think that it's important that if you're going to bring this up at meetings, that you come with your gun sockets filled, like that you have actual research, that you've gone through PubMed and you found research linking unhealthy lunches or
so
sugary.
There is so much there.
But when you go in and you say this happens because of this, and they're like, no, that's just kids these days. But we need to understand, and we need to show it, and we need to prove it. I mean, you have kids reacting to all different kinds of chemicals that are coming up in their food.
It's brutal. Like let's have a meeting, and guess what? We'll give them away free pizza, or we'll give them candy and cookies, and let's bribe them.
Right. It's
so
a way
we could get them to listen to us,
or get them to show up for committees.
We're using food the wrong way.
We are. And
it's a big annoyance to me when I see that.
So the biggest thing that I bring up that I get so much pushback on than anything else is that I don't believe, aside from the curriculum in terms of health, which I clearly have my problems with, even still in Canada a little bit, aside from health class, the school should not be teaching my kids about healthy eating habits, because they can't do it well. So when
they're required by the Ministry of Education.
Right, but I'm saying aside from health class. So when they walk into the office and they say that there's cookies for sale, when they see that the grade 8s are selling chips to send money to buy water wells in impoverished countries, when it is constantly food, when they go to Halloween dance and there's food, when they have a social and it's food and junk, the school's sending out a message that these foods are okay, and it creates a problem. What I have seen in our school is I have seen kids steal money from their parents in order to buy cookies and chips.
And from each other.
I've seen them steal from each other. I've seen them wipe out their own piggy banks to be able to buy it. I have seen bullying. If you don't buy me this, then I'm not going to be your friend anymore, or worse, depending on the age group. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't be selling things at school, because we should be avoiding the opportunity for kids to use money, but it doesn't have to be food, because the message that we're sending is all of these foods are okay to eat all day long whenever you want. And we see behaviors going out of control. We see obesity on the rise, and we see poor grades because of it, and poor interactions between kids, which to me is really the most important. I think it's really important to raise kids who are responsible adults, and I don't think we're starting them off right.
It's hard for those adults to do that when they don't adopt those values and understand the impact that food has just on their own.
Right, but you don't go to your pediatrician for singing lessons.
Right.
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 Do you get it?
Yeah.
I'm going to interrupt this show for a minute because I wanted to tell you that I was thinking about you earlier. Yes, that's right, you, and all the people on Facebook and Instagram who are always asking me about how to make healthy lunches for your kids. The best way for me to do that is not to tell you, but it's to teach you in our school lunch guide a way to making it easy and healthy. It's also about helping parents and their children to come together and decide on healthy lunch items that kids agree to eat, and creating a structure around the lunch making to keep the guesswork out of it, to keep early morning frustrations away, and really to avoid that after-school wasted slop from being a daily ritual. It really doesn't take more than 20 minutes to do together, and it will save you hours later on. I thought of you because I know that you're trying to create easy and healthy lunches your child will actually eat, so you can feel like a rock star parent and your child can actually get the nutrients they need to grow and learn. Would you like to see it? Check it out at planttrainers.com/shop or click the school lunches link in the show notes. And now back to the show.
We had a really good question come in from Eric. I think we should talk about that.
Yeah, so he says, what gets me, I'm not sure if it's I guess it is a question.
It is.
What gets me is how kids are lactose intolerant, yet cafeterias around the world still only offer cow's milk, mostly because it's subsidized. And how can we get at least one non-dairy milk affordable enough for schools to be able to offer it to them? The truth is that it's going to be more than one person who's going to be able to do that. And I think that the more we see all of these almond milk and soy milk commercials, and we see people voting with their dollars, and we see people who don't want as much cow's milk, I think we're on our way there. And I think it's a matter of lobbying. And
there's definitely been a shift in, if you go to the grocery store and you look at the milk section, there's a lot more plant-based milks available. If you walk into school and you see milk in the vending machine, why shouldn't there be a plant-based milk option? And in some schools, especially if you're in the private sector, you could definitely speak to the person who's responsible for the vending machines and get at least one plant-based milk option in there. When it comes to cafeterias, it's a little more challenging because of the subsidization of dairy from the dairy farmers of the United States and Canada even. But it's something that needs to come. I always found it most impressionable when it comes from the students, and they're bringing it forward. So if our kids started talking to the staff about having more plant-based milk options, eventually it's going to happen. It just means you got to put your foot down and keep pressing at it. So if you want change, you got to be willing to talk it up and push change upon it.
It was really sad when Russell had a little friend come over after the summer, and they were talking about eating at camp and how this other child is lactose intolerant. And he said, and he was eating a non-dairy meal all summer, and he said, next year I'm just going to bring my pills so that I can eat the dairy anyway. And I mean,
it makes me crazy when people are popping pills so that they could more easily digest the lactose. Why not just switch to a plant-based milk in the first place? It's because their parents don't give them those options, and they don't understand the impact that the dairy has, because we could solve it with a pill.
So coming back to our main topic of how do we make change within the school is, just like Adam said, we press at it continuously. We press at it slowly. We come with research. We bring it into a community, not just a single child, especially if it's your single child. And, you keep going at it. And even if they don't eliminate the milk, but they add an option, And even if it's a more expensive option, at least it's available. And that's a win for now, because look at how far
Small
we've really
steps.
come in the last 10 years, for
so
sure.
we've been focusing a lot on food, and we were talking about creating healthier and more sustainable schools. So could we get into the sustainability and more of the environmental things in the school building, and how people could make things that they're using or use things that are more sustainable in that environment?
Sure. So like I said, our school is like a third rated or top rated eco school.
Whatever that means.
So it means some stuff. I'm not sure what all of it means. I'm not on the eco committee. You'll be happy to know.
Yes.
But I do know that they've moved from textbooks on paper to textbooks on the computer. Right. I know that they've moved away from using a lot of handwriting, and they do a lot more typing. I have mixed feelings about that. But I think that we had a really big disconnect when the school is selling, coming back to food, all of these extra food items that are not necessarily, I'm not talking about lunch, but I'm talking about chips and cookies and things like that. That's making extra junk food. They're not getting a big case and putting on a glove and selling 4 cookies at a time, or 3 cookie or 1 cookie at a time. Each thing is individually wrapped. So think about that. Think about how recycling is working in the school, and how much of those paper or how much of those wrappers are going into the garbage can instead of into the proper place. So they're going into landfills when they actually can be recycled.
I think the worst possible thing is these water bottles. When they give out those plastic bottles, that drives me crazy. Like, everybody should have their own water bottle. Every school should have those filling stations. It drives me crazy when we're giving out bottles of water that are plastic for one-time uses. It makes me nuts.
So a lot of our events that we have at school in the past, we've sold water with it. So pizza or burger, a bag of chips, and a bottle of water.
Plastic bottle?
Plastic bottle of water.
That's crazy.
So at our last meeting, we actually had an argument. It was an argument, for sure.
Of course it was.
And normally that doesn't really happen, but some of the parents were saying, and it was brought up by somebody other than me, a grade 1 parent. So I was really happy that it wasn't Shoshana again, and that I was able to support it as opposed to bring it up. But she said, look, if we're a top eco school, why are we selling plastic water bottles?
Makes no sense.
So the other parents are like, well, what are we supposed to do for water? And bring your own bottle. Well, the problem comes in is selling these water bottles is part of our fundraising, which helps to buy computers and a library equipment and books and all of these things for the school. So how do we offset that? And we actually found a company that it's a plastic water bottle, but multiple use, like
PBA free, all that.
Yeah, all of that. It's like highly recyclable.
Right.
And not only that, but it's like one of those buy a water bottle, give water kind of thing. So there's social give back.
So you're going to start selling water bottles that are printed with your school's name on it?
Yes. And then what we will do is when we're selling those at the events, so you could either use a water fountain or you could buy a bottle, or you could bring your own bottle.
Right.
And we'll have Sharpies so that kids can write their names on it until they get home and stick their fancy labels on it or whatever.
It's a much better idea than the disposable single-use bottles.
And the truth is, kids go, I'm thirsty, I'm thirsty, I'm thirsty, I'm thirsty. Their parents' head want to explode. You finally buy your kid one of those disposable water bottles. They take a third of a sip, and the whole thing gets wasted.
So, but long term, for the school to make money off of this, they're not going to make a lot of money, because once a kid buys the bottle, they're not going to have to buy it again unless they forgot it.
Right, but I mean, think about it. How much are we actually making off of these small little water bottles anyway?
I don't know, but everything you're talking about, you say your school's trying to make money off of it. So
they are, but we're also trying to set an example.
Right, and I love that. I think that's a great initiative, a great step in the right direction, and more schools should be doing that. We shouldn't be giving out single-use plastic water bottles, period.
And I mean, I guess the option, you could always have the option of, would you like to donate an extra $1 towards a school? Right. And that way parents who can afford it can do it, and parents who don't want to or can't afford it will say no. And all of that is okay. But it's really it comes down to thinking about, what values do you have in your own life? What values do you have in your household? And then looking at the school as a whole and how it's run, which you might not really know unless you go to these types of meetings, and then making a list and being like, here's what I would change if I were in charge. And then start to, one thing at a time, start
Small
checking
steps.
it off.
It's almost like what we were talking about a few weeks ago with Amber Allen on episode 324, zero waste, reducing your carbon footprint. But trying to waste less at whatever stage you're at. Just start somewhere and then go from there in trying to make your home, your school environment a more sustainable place, but at the same time making it a healthier environment.
Absolutely. So one thing that our school does that I actually think is quite great, that was started by a social worker who's actually not even employed by the school, is she has teachers and parents. Basically, we send in our old stuff. Maybe it's not so much like tons and tons of clothes,
stuff,
but like household items, kids' toys, plates, fake flowers, anything that like you're cleaning up and you're like, why do I have this? I don't need this anymore. And what she does is she has a little table out in the staff room, and the prices for these things are like garage sale prices.
She's selling them.
She's selling it off to other staff, to other parents.
For what purpose?
So that money actually goes to help support the kids in the school that can't afford field trips, that can't afford new socks, that can't afford lunch, and it helps there. So I think that when we are thinking about what kind of projects are we going to support, because most schools will do some kind of fundraising, and I don't want to discredit at all the position that other countries, especially third world countries, are in. Not at all. And I think that a big majority of our lower class here in North America are still better off. But I think that it's really important to look within your own community and teach children to take care of themselves and take care of the people around them, and also take care of the world, but not necessarily in the opposite order. And I might get some lashback on this, but when you have kids in the school who can't afford food, but we're sending food to other countries, I think that everybody needs to divide their time, divide their monetary finances a little bit better, and not saying don't send it, but saying, what can we do here? The other thing about doing things here local to you, like working at shelters or sending food to women and kids shelters or animal sanctuaries or your local SPCA, when you can get kids involved, hands-on, on doing certain activities, the meaningfulness,
so much more purpose and value to that.
Yes, as opposed to going home, asking their parents for money, donating it to heart disease or cancer or kids across the world. If you can't get involved, the learning experience isn't going to be as great. And if we could teach these kids how to give back by giving them more hands-on learning experiences when they're young, I think that then they will grow up and do more financially and more, interact more with the world globally, and that will have a much bigger effect.
I think it's the same as you got to start with yourself and make yourself the best you could be so that everyone around you can get better. And if you don't take care of yourself, you can't expect to take care of everybody else. So we need to make our home environment as healthy and sustainable as possible so that we could use that as a role model for our community around us and our schools and help them become healthier and more sustainable overall.
Absolutely. So I think that, those are the things that really fall, that I believe, within our family values, and some of the ways that I'm trying to slowly make some change in the school. I mean, it's kind of gotten to the point, unfortunately, where a statement's made and then everybody looks in my direction, waiting for me to say something. But sometimes I just don't.
Change is never...
And sometimes I let things go.
Yeah, and you have to. And change is not something that's easy for most people to do. But if it's something that's worth doing for you, you're going to find a way to make it happen. So for people listening, people watching us on YouTube right now, how or what can they do to get kickstarted in this realm of creating a healthier and more sustainable school?
So number one is find out what role you can play in your school, what meetings you could go to, what committees you can join. Find out more about what's happening in the school and start to make your little list of what would you like to change. And then start to make that change, but don't make it about you. Don't make it about your children. Keep it in terms of a community.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's great. I think there was a lot of great information there.
I hope so.
All right.
Okay.
Let us know what you think.
Bye. Thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the Plant Trainers podcast. We want to make sure that you subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, or any other podcasting platform.
We really appreciate the feedback we receive from you. Every time we get a 5-star rating or review on iTunes from one of our fans, it really helps other people find us just like you did.
Thanks so much to our patrons. To become a patron, visit us at patreon.com/planttrainers. Even supporting us with $1 really makes a difference in the quality of the show.
And don't forget to connect with us on Instagram and Twitter. Our handle is @PlantTrainers. Like Plant Trainers on Facebook, join our newsletter, and check out our website at planttrainers.com for awesome recipes, a list of our services, and of course, our latest podcast.
We encourage you to email your questions to info@planttrainers.com so that we can help you improve your quality of life through nutrition and fitness.
So we hope we've inspired you today. Join us again next time and have a healthy day. Or is that too corny?
It's a little cheesy.